Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the mornings. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning. There you go. Okay, one more time. I gotta have an eye on the button when I press it each morning. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Monday. It's one of those Mondays. September 29th, 2025. Time for another show. Time for another fiscal year, if you ask me. I'd say probably about Wednesday or so would be good for me. How about you? All right. Well, that's when it is. And that, of course, means we are, we're 2 full days from the end of the fiscal year and therefore from government shutdown. And, we've been counting this down for you since the last CR passed. So, we've been doing it for half a year at this point. And we're always counting down to the next government shutdown. And we're going to start counting down to the next government shutdown as soon as if they adopt a CR. I hadn't really thought about what we were going to do during a government shutdown in terms of using that space on our morning posts to count down the days to the next government shutdown. I don't know. I guess it's just 0. We'll just stay on 0 days to the next government shutdown until the government reopens, at which point we will count how many days there are in the CR, or if they somehow manage to pass some sort of year-long spending bill, we'll count it down from the 300s. No problem. That's what we do. Anyway, so yes, we're about 2 days from that, and tensions, escalating at the last minute. You may recall we briefly discussed that the House passed its version of a CR just before they left town for a recess that was supposed to be a 1-week recess. It was going to encompass, probably would have run a little bit longer, but it was going to encompass the Jewish holidays, which stretch into the end of this week, but I guess they were going to take some time off. They were supposed to come back today and tomorrow for last minute, anything that was necessary last minute to try to work to keep the government open. But then they realized, actually, we're Republicans. We don't want the government open. So the play was that the House was going to send a CR over to the Senate and then skip town and tell them they're not coming back until 2 days before shutdown. So the Senate was in more or less a take it or leave it position. So they left it. The Senate did, which meant, all right, fine, you're calling our bluff. The House can come back for September 29th and 30th and, do a 1-week CR, whatever it takes to keep the government open and running and the problem out of our hair. But they realized over the last couple of days, actually, we don't want this. Or the president doesn't want this, and we don't want to get in the way of the president because we're afraid of him, and we're going to get nasty grams from everybody if we, do something other than the most radical possible horrible thing. So they recently hinted that they wouldn't come back even for these 2 days, and I'm not certain what that's supposed to mean. I guess they're hoping that everyone will believe that the Senate might, just to avoid all this terrible stuff, we're going to reconsider the previously rejected CR. Very unlikely. So again, the tactics have shifted, and now, without any real basis from which to say such a thing or to believe that such a thing would happen, or a story that they could make up that most people beyond their base would believe, the White House's tack so far, and Republicans in the House, I guess, are joining in, saying, well, if there's a shutdown, that will be the Democrats' fault, despite the fact that there's a majority in both houses of Congress of Republicans, and they could pass anything they want if they just put their minds to it. Now, the Senate could, of course, filibuster. Democrats could stand in the way of the passage of the CR in the Senate, but you can bypass them. They just did it. They know how it's done. So it may be too much of a tall order to request that Republicans in the Senate trigger some sort of mini nuclear option twice in the space of about 2 weeks. But anyway, the story they're going to go with instead is this is somehow Democrats' fault. We'll see how well that works in the media. The media loves a Democrats in disarray story. So we'll get to that. The House won't. They probably won't come back. But one of the other reasons they won't come back, of course, is the 218th signature on the discharge petition for the Epstein files will have arrived in Washington. In fact, Greg announced the results of that election almost a week ago, and the Speaker of the House is using this extended recess as an excuse. Well, I'm not there to swear her in. We haven't seen her papers. Well, they're here, and they're waiting for you. Well, we're waiting for the official results, which take an extra week to count. Well, she won by 40 points, and you swear people in on the basis of preliminary results all the time. Yes, well, I'm not going to this time. And that's before we get to the weekend of chaos, which I've got a couple of different sources on summing it all up. There's just no way to do it, so we'll have to have overlapping summations. Greg Dworkin is here to offer his summation of these things, and I must announce, although, again, this is one of those days where you're reminded we are technically almost always, and maybe even just actually always, under the cloud of a mass shooting. Someone somewhere has been doing it under the loosest possible FBI approved, back before Kash Patel, FBI approved definition being 4 or more people shot in a single incident. That actually happens quite frequently. It very frequently gets no attention because it happens in a random fashion. Somebody at a party or something gets angry and gets in a fight, and people are shooting back and forth. And this, by the way, I just can connect it to current events, is the sort of incident that Charlie Kirk classified as gang violence and somehow otherwise other than a mass shooting and somehow different. In fact, the last exchange he was in the middle of having when he was murdered was that someone asked him about, do you know how many mass shootings there are all the time and how many mass shootings there have been in the last year? They were actually trying to get to a different angle on this thing, but they asked him, and his response was, including or not including gang violence. The very smug answer of, well, when those people shoot one another, that doesn't count as a mass shooting. It only counts when it happens in a white church. Maybe it doesn't even count when it happens in a black church. Sometimes with people like Charlie Kirk, you never know. And that was the moment. So anyway, as I said, Greg Dworkin is here. we've been waiting too long, Greg. So let's see, what have we that will help us launch your segment today? We'll go with the Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah. Fractured Fairy Tales, Rocky, Bullwinkle,
yeah. We'll shorten
body. I love that whole group.
Yeah, that's your cartoon genre.
Yeah, cartoons when cartoons were good.
Yeah,
it's funny when we were getting the show set up, and it's not like we do hours of prep work. We have like 3 minutes to talk to each other.
Right.
And David knows that I'm having some construction now in our 4th week in the house, probably going to stretch into a 5th.
Oh my!
And there's going to be noise, and there's going to be some sounds in the background, maybe even Abby barking. You never know. She knows everybody by now, and they bring treats, so she doesn't usually bark.
Maybe we should have gone with the.
But to get it started, David said, "So how are things in the house?" And I didn't know if he meant like my house or the House of Representatives. And I said, either way, it's a mess.
Yeah.
And it turns out to be true. I have this
your
really
guys show
nice
up for work.
summary. Yeah. I have this really nice summary from the election law blog, which I'm a big fan of.
I will look.
Which is right at the bottom there by Ned Foley, called "The Political Fight Brews Around Adelita Grijalva's Swearing into Congress."
Yeah, there we go.
And I like when experts actually write this stuff. So as he points out, I'm blogging about it because I know from writing, quote, "Ballot Battles, The History of Disputed Elections in the United States, 2nd edition, 2024. So he knows
Seems
what
like
he
a
says.
lot. Yeah, all right.
That playing politics with swearing in is dangerous. So here's the quote. Usually a new representative doesn't take office until state officials formally certify the result of the election and transmit the result to the U.S. House's Office of the Clerk.
Yeah.
Afterward, it falls to the Speaker to schedule the swearing in. And that timeline would put Grijalva on track to take office on or after October 14th, which is the day that state officials are scheduled to certify the result. However, in an interview with the Arizona Republic, Grijalva said she can be sworn in sooner than that. James
can.
Walkinshaw, the Virginia Democrat who took office the day after his September 9th election, was sworn in using the unofficial results. Point being, too long didn't read. If nobody's contesting the election, they generally say fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, AP called it good enough for me. It's 40-point win. You know, it's not going to be challenged. Even if it is, it's not going to succeed. You're in.
Yeah.
However,
this
would be the 218 signature on the petition, the discharge petition, to vote on Jeffrey Epstein release of documents.
That name again,
and
Jeffrey
Speaker
Epstein.
Johnson doesn't want to embarrass all of his Republicans, who he's been desperate to not have this vote to the point of canceling Congress, literally canceling Congress, so he doesn't have to vote.
Yeah,
and
they've done it before. I think they took off early for one of their previous breaks in order to avoid dealing with Massey on the floor trying to force a vote on it. And so
the update is Rita writes in to say that far from being unusual, the regular practice has been to seat the winner of special elections based on unofficial election night results unless it's disputed or contested. And that's exactly what happened with James Walkinshaw, who currently is the newest member, but Grijalva will supplant him as soon as she gets sworn in. Now, here's the thing. I also saw a piece from somebody else saying, well, actually, the speaker doesn't have to be the one to swear somebody in. It doesn't say that anywhere. What if Hakeem Jeffries swears her in?
Oh, well, there's that. The clerk could do it. They do it on opening day.
Yeah.
I snuck in the clerk mention, I think, at the end of last week. It's true.
Wouldn't it be fun if the clerk did it and then got fired, but still it doesn't matter? She's in?
Yeah, maybe, unless something. But it should work. It would be fine. It doesn't really buy him much of anything. Johnson, and now everybody's looking at him again and saying, Epstein.
Yeah, they've been watching these shenanigans and they know what's going on here. It's just calling attention to the fact that he's a putz.
Yeah.
Right. And so keep it in the news. Why don't you do that?
All right. I mean, I don't mind if they do.
That's where that stands. So how come she's not sworn in yet? Because Mike Johnson is a coward and a weasel. Yeah. And it's not going to help him because within the next week she's getting sworn in anyway.
Yeah. And then after which there'll be more shenanigans. Right. That's it. So far, empty is how they are.
Well, and then there's the shutdown. And the weirdest thing about the shutdown, it's just such a strange shutdown because the news media just does not know how to write about Democrats who are taking a stand on something. They're amazed. They're surprised. This is man bites dog. What do we do with this? Reluctant Democrats or nervous Democrats are united and are being firm. But it can't just be Democrats are united in being firm. It's nervous Democrats. I talked to somebody who off the record said, I wish we didn't have to do this. Oh, my God, that means they're disarray. No, they're not in disarray.
Oh,
they're actually, they have a plan. It's not a great plan because the whole situation sucks. And when you're in the minority, you don't have the votes. Nothing you do is going to be perfect. But the Senate has decided, since the House has already done its thing and disappeared, the Senate under Chuck Schumer, Democrats in the Senate, have decided it's way worse to agree to do this when Trump has already said that it doesn't matter what you do, even if you voted regular order on things that you spend money on, which is, after all, one of Congress's main purpose for existing. He's just going to do rescission and claw the money back anyway. So what difference does it make? So why should Democrats say, okay, we'll agree to negotiate at a later date on what you're going to do with money, like for Obamacare or subsidies. Why should we agree to this? Because whatever we do, you're going to just turn around and say, well, we agreed to it, but Trump didn't. And so too bad Supreme Court says he can do whatever he wants. And that being the case, why should the Democrats agree? Put them on record as saying, you got the majority, you got the White House. This shutdown's on you. And they're doing a reasonably good job on it. Now, what's the end point? What's the off-ramp? There isn't one. Why does there need to be? They're the ones that are in the majority.
Yeah. They're supposed to be doing this. They're supposed to be
solving
this
problem. If the government doesn't open up, Democrats will get blamed by who? Republicans? They blame Democrats for everything anyway. Who frickin' cares?
They're like 0 for 10 on this. It's actually one of the things that I've enjoyed watching develop is a press conventional wisdom that just like it's always in order to say Democrats are in disarray, or it's always in order to say the Republicans are responsible on the economy and Democrats are soft on crime. One of the things that has just gelled over the years is if there's a government shutdown, it's the Republicans' fault. Whether they're in the majority or the minority, that's just sort of where they are. I've never seen a government shutdown blamed on Democrats, no matter what happens.
No, because Republicans want to close down government. Everybody knows that.
Right. So, I mean, it's always, I wouldn't rest on that, certainly. But, I mean, it is the case that, and they've been saying, no, this is the one that we're going to definitely be able to convince people is the Democrats' fault for 20 plus years, and it just
go for it, buddy.
Doesn't work that way. I don't think. I mean, like I said, you don't rest on that, but it's there. So what else?
Yeah, well, when it comes to the House, there isn't anyone else because they really don't do much of anything.
Well, yeah, nothing for them to do, and I don't know whether I guess they'll really would. It's not hard for them to stay out of session Monday and Tuesday. They do that routinely anyway. So that would bring us to the end. And just so you know, I
was going to say
they're not coming back.
So they're
someone
back.
Else's
So
fault.
what? They're back. When they're back, they're not back. I mean,
well, they're not.
And as far as I know, they can deem today as yesterday, and this is 2024, and they can do all sorts of weird stuff.
The rest of the country that has to, run on the budget says, well,
and the
today
calendar
is actually today. Yeah, right. So, but this is an excellent point, and over the weekend, a lot of good discussion about, all right, now another Supreme Court ruling upholding an administrative stay that basically lays the groundwork for the invention of the pocket rescission, which, we discussed a little while ago, but is basically allowing things to run out.
Technically, it appears a narrow decision based on the idea that you don't have standing, but practically it means, yes, we'll find some other excuse when it actually comes up for Supreme Court decision. All of these shadow docket rulings are essentially telling the lower courts, stop trying to get in the way of Trump being a dictator.
Yeah.
But not formally, not officially, not finally, because all those cases still have to go through the system.
Yes, and then the system, of course, includes the same guys at the top of the chain. But
then they have to argue in public and put their name to it and such, and it's not automatic. That in other words, they could, be of the principle that there are too many cases. We want to work Tuesdays and Thursdays only the way the House does, and we want less cases. And the way to do that is to say nobody has standing to sue, and you really can't sue them about this, that, and everything else. And it's not like we're doing the individual case. We just want a smaller caseload. So we're very consistent with that. However, when it comes to the actual cases, we might say that the Fed Reserve does need to be separate because, we don't want to crash the economy.
Yeah,
and
we
Amy
have
Coney
stocks.
Barrett may vote with John Roberts and the liberals on some other issue just because. Yeah. And so, there's always that question.
Someone needs to get to Clarence Thomas and let him know that all of the gifts from billionaires depends on, an independent Federal Reserve keeping money. Like if they're going to give you cash or RVs or fabulous vacations, that gets paid for by the money system maintained by the Fed, and you just generally, you can do anything else you want, but don't wreck that. That's your lifestyle.
Oh, right. But enough about the House. Let's talk about something interesting.
Okay, sure.
Eric Adams drops out of the New York City mayoral race.
Oh, the whiplash. I can't believe it. What did he get offered, we wonder?
You wonder. So Adams says, I won't drop out. You can't make me drop out. I'm not dropping out. Okay, right. I'm out. The thing is, he can't take his name off the ballot, so he's not really out, and it's not really going to make a difference. And Mamdani's still going to be the next mayor.
Maybe that's all he wanted. He wants to frame a ballot.
But what's interesting is the way that certain media outlets have decided to approach Adams. CNN is straightforward. New York City Mayor Eric Adams ends his reelection bid.
All right,
pretty straightforward. The New York Times goes with a couple of different pieces, and I just thought I would read you the headline and maybe some stuff from one of them. The rise and fall of Eric Adams. Mr. Adams has suspended his reelection campaign, becoming the first mayor of New York City to fail to win a second term since David Dinkins. Who was the last good mayor of New York City, by the way.
Okay. I mean,
I am you, he told the supporters in November. The campaign was
which?
never about me, but it was always about me, and he used to fire people who were not sufficiently loyal. Does this sound familiar? Federal prosecutors charged Mr. Adams with bribery and fraud, saying he accepted free and heavily discounted travel on Turkish Airlines in
He's
exchange
not
for
me.
help.
I didn't do that.
Opening a new Turkish consulate in Manhattan that the fire department said was not safe.
I don't think I knew about that one.
The high hopes that many New Yorkers had for Mr. Adams have long since been dashed. The mayor's own ambitions ground to a halt. Yada, yada, yada. But they had 3 pieces on Adams. The second one really got me annoyed. Swaggering, scandalous, strange. There will never be another Eric Adams. Of course there
Swaggering.
won't. He's a thief and a gunner. And why didn't you say a failure? And why didn't you add awful to that headline? That's ridiculous. What are you trying to prop the guy up for? Better is the third piece they had on Adams in the same day, which was 13 moments that have defined Eric Adams' political career from his early beginnings, state senate, and then Brooklyn borough president. But the best part is his election to the state senate is January 2007, and by 2010, which was only 3 years later, amid a scandal over the awarding of a video lottery contract at Aqueduct Racetrack, the state's inspector general found Adams and other Senate Democrats had accepted contributions from contenders for the contract and had socialized with the lobbyists. Mr. Adams denied wrongdoing, was never charged with a crime. So for 15 years, he's been skirting the law on stuff, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And while borough president of Brooklyn, he also made several trips under the banner of his office to Turkey, Senegal, China, Cuba, and elsewhere, because everybody knows Brooklyn has important international relations with a lot of countries who pay you money to go see them.
I guess. I mean,
by August 20, he claimed, well, New York is multi-ethnic, so I have to go all over the world to see people.
All right, that's true. There may be perhaps somebody on the moon or Mars.
4 years later. No, that was January 2014 when he became borough president. By August, it was just 7-8 months later. The city's inspector general has concluded that Mr. Adams and a nonprofit he had organized, One Brooklyn, appeared to have improperly solicited funds from groups that had or would soon have business before his office. Mr. Adams promised to comply going forward.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Well, that's
then
enough
during
for me.
COVID, Adams starts to run. He beats Curtis Lewa, who's also running this time.
I forgot he ran in that time too.
There were already indications, says the Times, that Mr. Adams would be an unorthodox leader. That's what they say about Trump.
Mm-hmm.
A penchant for telling dramatic stories, details exaggerated and sometimes fabricated, declarations his ascendants had been divinely ordained, a fondness for nightlife, fine clothes, and foreign travel. This should be a very interesting experience, said Mr. Adams' friend David Patterson, the former governor of New York, another jerk. With New York City struggling to care for, how do I know he's a jerk? He's a friend of Eric Adams.
Yeah.
With New York City struggling to care for an influx of 110,000 asylum seekers, Mr. Adams declared, this issue will destroy New York City, starts working closer with Trump. The FBI executed search warrants against Adams and several close associates in November 2023 for the Turkish connection there. Midnight Express, Mr. Adams' devices are seized by agents. The inquiry would examine, among other things, whether Mr. Adams expedited a fire safety approval of a high-rise Turkish consulate in Manhattan in exchange for campaign contributions. Federal prosecutors unveiled a 5-count indictment in September 2024, charging Adams with bribery, conspiracy, fraud, and soliciting illegal foreign campaign contributions. I understand that Andrew Cuomo is very prominent, has a big mouth, is in the paper, former governor, and a lot of people hate him, especially online. But I've been telling people all along, Adams is the guy to hate. And New Yorkers agree because he has by far the worst approval, disapproval, and he has by far the worst polling numbers, which is why he's out.
Yeah.
December 2024, Ingrid Lewis Martin, Adams' chief advisor, charged by the Manhattan DA with taking bribes. The guy's a crook. He's always been a crook. And so swagger, special, different, interesting, crooked.
Yeah.
Crooked.
New York City mayors are weird.
He's awful.
They just are. And you always get a weirdo. It's very rare that you get a normie, competent person.
I
somehow.
Get that, but
I don't
the
know
newspaper's supposed to be independent.
Yeah.
Call it the way it is instead of trying to suck up to him and Trump and everybody else.
I can't imagine what the benefit of sucking up to a guy. This is the lamest lame duck there ever was.
Right.
And well, all right. So that's the background.
But that's what we do.
Yeah. Oh, it is?
Because our buddies and people who look at our wedding announcements and such are real estate people, and that's who we really care about in terms of our readership, and they're friends with Eric Adams, so we got to be nice to them.
Okay.
Because we're independent.
Now they
and
no longer
without fear or favor,
friends.
we go after anybody who needs to be gone after, because all the truth that fits, we print.
Whew. Well, all right. He's on his way out. That's good. I enjoyed the fact that was like a 2-3 week space between. They'll never make me drop out. I'm out.
Well, one of the reasons I'm enjoying the rise of Zoran Mamdani so much is not only does he also, in a very interesting and much more for the people kind of way, break the status quo.
Yes, we certainly hope so.
It's a big FU to the newspapers and media who cover New York, and I'm all in on that.
Oh, okay. Well, everybody's in for that. I think that's exciting. I was going to say, between him and a few others who have gotten themselves in trouble in the past, once they reach the office of the mayor, the path through the New York State Senate is a treacherous one. But Mamdani has traveled that path too, so hopefully he stays on the up and up. But the New York State Senate Democratic caucus is just a danger zone. It just turns people weird. Yeah.
It is a snake pit.
So keep an eye on that. I'm not saying that it happens to everybody, because that's never a wise thing to say, but, it's out there.
I'm going to say an early goodbye just in case. I have a feeling stuff is happening here at the house, which may
They were all
need
waiting
my
for a
attention.
commercial. Okay.
But I didn't want to surprise everybody by not being there when you get back.
Okay. The true surprise will be when I'm not there when I get back. Then everybody will be shocked. And won't you be surprised when I show up in your house?
Well, the house does it. Why don't you do it?
Yeah, that's right. We're not coming back. The government's shutting down, so's the radio show. Everybody, thanks, Greg. I hope you can come back.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. It's a mystery at this point, an open question as to whether or not Greg will be able to return. As we've settled on, we'll leave the connection open but muted, and if it turns out that everything goes well or there's only a minimal amount of noise, Greg can rejoin at any time. We should just leave it open all the way through, all the way to 11 o'clock. Just generally say you have an open invitation to come back and join the discussion. This week, on Thursday, I'll be off the air live, and I'll give it a shot between now and then at recording something for Thursday's use, because there's no point in missing a day at this point. There's just so much news. But the question is, will I be able to fit anything in? I should just leave the connection open overnight, and then at 9 o'clock on Thursday, Greg can come by. But that means we miss a Greg day, so this day, whatever. It's another important one. But we may do last week, and we can do it again now. So, as I mentioned, there was a lot happening. I mentioned to you that there were multiple mass shootings. I thought when I was packing it in last night, I think someone's count of mass shootings in the country was up to 4. I believe I saw this morning somebody make the claim that there were 6 for the weekend, I guess. And that's entirely possible. And like I said, not terribly unusual, but the splashy ones that made the headlines were, interesting, again, in terms of, well, who's doing this and why are they doing this? And will we ever get to the bottom of it? And if we do get to the bottom of it and it turns out to be right-wing violence, and this latest big splashy headlining one looks that way, are we going to get any, will there be any reaction from the people who spent the last couple of weeks saying left-wing violence is on the rise? And the answer is no. Unless it's to figure out a way to, false flag it somehow. This is a leftist who was trying to disguise themselves as a rightist, which is something they've been saying since forever. They even said that about January 6th. They continue to say that about January 6th. So it will be no surprise should that happen. But we're talking about the shooting at the LDS church in Michigan. Was it Grand Blanc? Did they say Blanc or did they say Blanc? I don't know. But Grand Blanc, like the French. Michigan, and just, the most outrageous style. I think the person smashed a truck into the church and he shot people and he set the church on fire. He made for horrific pictures and video. And apparently, his online presence and his physical presence in the world, lots of Trump stickers, flags, a Trump Vance sign outside on his lawn of his house, and all of that. And no mention of that so far from the White House. So lots of other things happening as well. I mentioned we were back to a weekend chaos schedule, and the pace is breakneck, to be sure. I don't often on my own go to Heather Cox Richardson. I never object when others do, and I've been pointed there a number of times, and I see her posts all the time, and they're timely and interesting, but usually we've covered the same material. We're all looking at the same news sources and relatively similar directions in our takes. She's more eloquent and organized in them, but we're generally covering a lot of the same territory. But she's done something today or yesterday that I thought was a helpful, everything she does is always helpful. A helpful summation of the pace of chaos from the weekend. And we'll use her September 28th entry in Letters from an American to sum up part of what happened over the weekend. This, again, was yesterday's entry. Late last night, meaning late Saturday night, President Donald J. Trump, he's the president of the United States, by the way, shared on social media a deep fake video that appeared to be a clip from his daughter-in-law Lara Trump's Fox News talk show, My View. Now, you could probably stop the piece there and say the president's daughter-in-law has a Fox News talk show called My View, and that's crazy nepotism, and by the way, that's a propaganda network, and indicative of something very, very wrong with our system to begin with. And then also, I don't know if you heard me, but right at the beginning, I said this was President Donald J. Trump, which also is indicative of something very, very wrong with our political system. But that's not even it. We've come to accept that he claims to be president of the United States, and nepotism is not a problem for him. So this was he shared a deep fake video that appeared to be Lara Trump doing a segment on her show. In the video's split screen, Lara Trump on the left says, President Donald J. Trump has announced a historic new healthcare system, the launch of America's first MedBed hospitals, and a national MedBed card for every citizen. If you're confused about it, just hang on. As she speaks, the video shows a building with the caption, all caps, of course, MedBed hospitals, the new era in healthcare. Then the video shows a clip of Trump, apparently, saying, and in a very poor Trump, I don't know whether they sampled bits and pieces of his voice or whether it was all just, I guess it was all just AI generated, and the AI made it sound worse. I think I do a better Trump than the AI did, but it said that Trump said, every American will soon receive their own MedBed card. As the video shows what looks like a futuristic hospital, complete with what appear to be pod-like beds, he continues, with it, you'll have guaranteed access to our new hospitals, led by the top doctors in the nation. Why they would be necessary, I don't know, if you know anything about medbeds, but equipped with the most advanced technology in the world. And if you're having trouble picturing these things, they've been represented in science fiction movies a lot of ways. Star Trek, kind of had something, well, the handheld version of it. The doctor just waved his little electronic beep boop thingy over you and you got cured. But there was something like a med bed, I guess, concept in. Have you seen the movie Passengers? We've seen it like 10,000 times in our house. I don't know why that is. One of the movie channels had it on contract and just played it continuously since forever. And we've seen it 1,000 times. But there's one in there, an auto dock, they call it. And you put them in looks like one of those hyperbaric chambers that Michael Jackson used to sleep in, allegedly. And, lie down in it, and lasers and robot arms and scanners go all over you and then tell you everything that's wrong with you. And at the press of a button, we'll fix it magically somehow. And for a while now, I think she gets around to explaining this, but not thoroughly. But this has been a QAnon conspiracy theory type thing that's hung around since we heard about QAnon at the very least, and probably a little while longer. The theory being that A, these things are real, and B, the vampire pedophile cabal of elites that withhold money and everything else from all of you was hogging the medbed technology, using it to live forever, and not giving it to peons like you. But Donald Trump, this is now this part of the theory, it was always part of it, that eventually he would do it. And now the fake AI video says he's doing it now. He's finally bringing medbed technology to you for free, no doubt, probably starting with people who are most loyal to him, but then spreading out from there. By the way, if you believe a pro-Donald Trump conspiracy theory in which he gives medical benefits to people who don't support him, you haven't been paying attention to anything and you're out. You're out of the club now. Anyway, as she writes, the camera then goes back to Trump saying, these facilities are safe. They got to tell you this. It's a medical facility. You would think so. The camera switches back to a hospital scene. Modern and designed, safe, modern, and designed to restore every citizen to full health and strength. Be like a video game. The video then switches back to Trump, who says, this is the beginning of a new era in American healthcare. Lara Trump takes over. As a scene of people applauding Trump runs beside her, she says, in this first phase, only a limited number of medbed cards will be released. Registration details will be announced very soon, at Mar-a-Lago, and you can get them if you're a member, whatever, something like that. Medbeds are imaginary, magical beds, sort of like a tanning bed, that diagnose or cure health problems instantly and painlessly. The idea is popular in QAnon forums, and believers claim that Trump is already secretly installing the beds in hospitals. It is unclear why Trump posted an obviously fake video touting an obviously fake product, although healthcare is uppermost in politics these days. The Democrats say they will not agree to the Republicans' continuing resolution to keep the government open, unless the Republicans agree to extend the premium tax credit that subsidizes healthcare insurance for people making between 100 and 400% of the federal poverty limit. I know they wonked that up quite a bit, but that's the definition of things. But basically, you understand that without that extension, as she notes, millions of Americans will lose their health insurance, and healthcare premiums for everyone in the Affordable Care Act market will go up, often dramatically. All the experts and people who know anything about it have been warning about that for some time, and we're just, what can you do? Trump is driving us off that cliff. And if you've been watching, you know. And if you haven't been watching, you've known all along. But you're distracted by something else, which is fine because, I don't want to say the word distraction, but everything else is also terrible. So no blame there. If medbeds were real and, quote, every citizen, and by the way, check those words out for you. If they were real, right, Donald Trump would, of course, be reserving their use for his best friends or people he deemed worthy of it. And starting with the word citizen, you would find out very quickly there would be anybody he doesn't think is a citizen or shouldn't be a citizen, including people who are citizens because they were born here, but he wishes they weren't, probably wouldn't be eligible. But if medbeds were real and every citizen could use them, as the deepfake video suggests, no one would need to worry about losing their health care insurance. So that might have been the motivation behind whoever created this thing. Like, everybody's worried about healthcare. Why don't we just say Donald Trump is fixing it magically forever? Someone, though, did take the video down from Trump's timeline this morning And by the way, also on Blue Sky, I noticed plaudits for, was it, I don't know, the Daily Beast maybe, that pointed out in the headline, President 79 has to take down fake AI video from his timeline. They used different wording, but that was the headline. And someone was saying, yeah, tip of the hat for throwing the age in there. That we get you. Okay. So he had to, take it down because it was obviously fake, but it started a lot of speculation about, well, what happened here? And people laying out the basic possibilities. One, he knew it was fake and did it anyway. 2, he didn't know it was fake and got fooled. 3, it wasn't him that retweeted it anyway, or who took it down for that matter. It may just have been he put it up there, but literally just saw that it was a video of him. And he said, all right, great, and didn't look at what was in there. Probably the lowest probability of all that he screened the video, saw it, and said, sure, why not? Let's do that. Because, but he might believe in med beds. You never know, because we'll get to later on, I think even in this summation, some of the other events, it's not clear what he thinks he believes about things in general. So where were we? Yeah, someone took the video down from Trump's timeline yesterday. On Friday, Republicans took the stand that Democrats would, as we mentioned earlier, pay for shutting down the government. A White House official told Dasha Burns of Politico that Trump would not negotiate, and here's the quote they gave. He read all the... I need my censoring noises here. He read all the shit they're asking for and said on second thought, go fuck yourself. So that's it. He read all the S they're asking for and said on second thought, go F yourself. That was a White House official telling Politico what the general prevailing sentiment was. Yesterday, meaning Saturday, though, Punchbowl reported that Trump will meet with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune are expected to be there as well. So, you could just say the bipartisan congressional leadership, but okay. The government is funded through Tuesday, September 30th. And by the way, in the background there, it's not an unusual meeting with the congressional leadership, but it does happen one day before the big mystery thingy that Hegseth has called all the flag officers in from all around the world, which they're now saying, I guess they had to issue a story. I don't know whether this is the real story or not. Was Hegseth is going to give them a speech to all the top officers in the military on the warrior ethos, which, he knows about by being bounced out of the National Guard at the rank of major, perhaps. So he's going to tell all the 3-star and up generals about how to be a warrior. And just another myth dying there, by the way. This time the movie myth of the tough as nails soldiers generals who will stand up in a situation like that. And how dare you tell me how to soldier? Oh, you effed with the wrong Marine. You never really get that. They sit there and I don't know whether they might choose not to applaud, and give maybe anonymous quotes afterwards. That sucked. That guy's an idiot. But maybe not. Anyway, that all coincides with the government being funded through the end of Tuesday, and also taking place Tuesday, right? The mention here of the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth abruptly having called last week for hundreds of the nation's top military officers to meet in Quantico, Virginia Marine Corps Base. When Trump talked to reporters on Thursday, he did not appear to understand that Hegseth had called U.S. military officers to Quantico. I was wondering about that last week. Not this part, but did anybody ask him about it? Did he know about it? And I guess he didn't up to through Thursday, appearing to think that he had invited military leaders from other countries. Interesting. I love it. I think it's great, Trump said. Let him be friendly with generals and admirals from all over the world. You act like this is a bad thing. Isn't it nice that people are coming from all over the world to be with us? He must have heard he brought in generals and admirals from all over the world thinking, oh, from other countries. No, our admirals and generals are all over the world, and he's bringing them back. I don't know whether he gets to it. Oh, yeah, here it is. Today, that was yesterday, Tara Kopp, Dan Lamont, Noah Robertson, and Alex Horton of the Washington Post reported that Trump has decided that he will go to the gathering himself. This is chaos. This is presidential scheduling chaos. And by the way, if you think it's nothing, you want a headache, go work for the Secret Service at this one, right? Not only last week when Trump wasn't going, the idea of publicly telling everybody, yep, all the top brass of the American military, the brain trust, the working guts of the upper echelons of the Pentagon are all going to be in one place, and that place is blank, and so is the Secretary of Defense, who calls himself the Secretary of War, and blah, 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 era of drone attack. I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't sound like a very good idea. If you think that's not headache enough, the president says, you know what, in like 36 hours, I'm going to. What? Anyway, it was interesting to me because while everybody was, worried about what might this mean, and then, of course, Hegseth had given no explanation, and then they came out with, well, he's going to give this dumb speech about how to soldier to, the generals. And that's a very dumb sounding idea, but it's the kind of idea that you would think that he would say, well, don't tell anybody because the real reason is we're going to fire them all. And then when everybody says, I suspect you're gathering them to fire them all, you say, no, it's another reason. And this would be the kind of, well, he's going to talk to them about being tough. That's dumb too. I doubt that that's the case. The ultimate, this meeting could have been an email, but I will say this. I don't think this is the issue. I think that may very well be what he aims to do, though I think a purge may very well come with it, but maybe not necessarily at that point. So if you're thinking movie scenes, like is it, Braveheart, and he locks them all in there and sets the place on fire, or hangs them, or God knows what. No, I don't think so. But as long as we're borrowing from, Middle Age history and maybe English history and British history in particular, but this is also a weird thing to do, right? In an older age, this might also have been interpreted as, the Duke of Drunk over here, secretary, thinks he has the juice to like call his generals together, call his banners in, and then the president comes and visits, and oh, gee whiz, I can't believe he walked right into this, and the king's going to the tower. I'm the new king. I also don't think that's what Hegseth is up to, but the reason I mention it is I wondered whether that generalized possibility, particularly if Trump is like, oh yeah, this is great for foreign generals to come from all over the world. No, not foreign generals. The United States military, what you would refer to as your generals, are coming to hear Hegseth on his orders that you didn't know about. Well, then I'm going, and this is he may or may not really believe that Hegseth is preparing to throw him in the tower here, but he clearly thinks, wait a second, I'm not going to be upstaged by Pete Hegseth. I'm going to go and commandeer this thing and turn it into a rally, and then there'll be videotape of all of the generals saluting me and cheering for me. All right, so that's out there too. I think that's pretty odd. I hadn't read about him mistakenly believing that it was foreign military. Okay, Trump has now decided he'll go to the gathering himself. Trump told Yamiche Alcindor and Alexandra Marquez of NBC News, it's really just a very nice meeting, talking about how well we're doing militarily, talking about being in great shape, talking about a lot of good, positive things. It's just a good message, Trump said. We have some great people coming in, and it's just an esprit de corps. The expression esprit de corps. I'm surprised he didn't say he invented it. That's what it's all about. We're talking about what we're doing, what they're doing, and how we're doing, which is, what we're doing, what they're doing, and how we're doing, but not how they're doing, because F them, I guess. I don't know. In a phone interview with NBC News or NBC White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor today, that would have been yesterday, in a follow-up to that first exchange, Trump suggested he was backing off from the threat he posted on social media to send troops to Portland to handle, quote, domestic terrorists. That was the big chaos news of the weekend, I think. because he put up on Truth Social, I'm authorizing troops to go to Portland, which is in a war-ravaged, he called it, war-ravaged Portland, to, save the country because something, save them from domestic terrorists. But he also mentioned that he was authorizing the use of, quote, full force. This is not, by the way, the producers and backing musicians of Lisa Lisa and Cult Jam from the 1980s. Those guys are still pretty busy, I would think. But full force, I don't know. No one knew what that meant. And basically it was, does that mean the American military will be shooting at American citizens in the streets of Portland, which, of course, is not at war in any way, shape, or form? And led to a lot of speculation over the weekend. Once again, like, hey, the president may just be shouldn't we just be telling people he's mentally ill? He should be removed from office. There's just no way to spin anything that's going on in the neighborhood of the Pacific Northwest, period, as anything like being war ravaged. There's no war in Portland. There just isn't. And to say so should call into question the sanity of the president. But it doesn't, because it's just Trump being Trump. No, it isn't. It isn't. And okay. This is one of the reasons that I liked this summation of things here. Let's read on. So maybe he is backing off the threat that he posted on social media to send troops to Portland. I'm invading Portland because there's a war going on there. But maybe also there's not a war going on there. This is dangerous. I mean, dangerous to send troops there, but dangerous to be, maybe this is the truth. No, maybe the exact opposite is the truth. With regard to the dispatching of troops around the country or around the world, it's very dangerous that this president is that ill-informed and that unstable. It's not our generals. It is our generals. Oh, well, then I'm going too. Well, I'm also going to war in Portland. Maybe not. By the way, great thing to do during a war in Portland would be, of course, calling all of the generals to a meeting in the opposite direction of the war. But of course, I hung that one around his neck, as many people did, I'm sure, over the weekend. And now I realize, the whole time he thought it was some other group of generals. Well, that explains it. I mean, it means he's very stupid and out of touch, but that does sort of explain it. But it doesn't really explain spending the weekend playing golf and then going to the Ryder Cup. So anyway, war, it demands your attention when you're president. But anyway, so now he's possibly backing off of it. And then he says, it says here that the Democratic governor of Oregon, Tina Kotek, has told Trump and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem that there is no need for troops and they do not have the authority to deploy the military there. We can manage our own local public safety needs, Kotek said. There's no insurrection. There's no threat to national security going on here. In fact, there's really hardly anything. All of what this is about is people protesting outside of an ICE facility in Portland, and, the cops going out there and yelling at them, sometimes gassing them, sometimes hitting them, sometimes beating them and arresting them. It's not good, but it's ultra localized, and it's not even happening 24/7 or anything like it. Like at night, they come and they protest, and they film one another, protesting on one side and swinging clubs at people on the other side. It's not great, but it doesn't even occupy a single city block in Portland. I mean, it's you can say it. It's crazy to think there's a war going on in Portland. Of course it's crazy to think that. It's an American city. And by the way, no one ever stops to think, suppose you believe all this stuff. No one ever stops and says, how come we're losing control of an American city every day on Trump's watch? And of course, their view of it, no, we're regaining control of an American city every day on Trump's watch. Biden let them go. Trump is stopping it. If you're going to believe that, I guess there's just no convincing you of anything. Now, Evan Watson of KGW8 in Portland, Oregon, reported that Trump told Alcindor that they were, quote, looking at sending troops. And it's always an indication he doesn't quite know what's going on when he's looking at something, or one of his tics about lying. If you look at, if he doesn't know the proof of something, do you have any proof of that? Well, if you look at, no, then you'll see. Anyway, I spoke to the governor. She was very nice, Trump added. But I said, well, wait a minute. This is really something. Ready? Wait a minute. Am I watching things on television that are different from what's happening? My people tell me different. They are literally attacking, and there are fires all over the place. It looks terrible. And once again, I think we mentioned it about a week or so ago that the story was that Trump had been shown footage of the 2020 protests over George Floyd's death, Black Lives Matter protests, etc., which also really required no federal intervention, but had received federal intervention nonetheless, Trump having then been in office. But they showed him footage of that and said that's happening right now, which A, it isn't, and B, even when it was happening, the rest of Portland was fine, just the same. But he then, I guess, realized at some point, or someone may have told him, and this is actually a 2020 film. But still, this is happening right now. This is just an example of what it's like over there. We just haven't, through the magic of modern technology, no video has gotten to us, even though instantaneous video around the world is the thing now. Anyway, so yeah, it sounds like it might have dawned on him, wait a second, am I watching things on television that are different from what's happening? Maybe hold that one up alongside the fact that you were just watching something that you thought was television that really wasn't television, and you told everybody it was true, and it was this stupid science fiction idea about med beds, and the video makes you look like a complete wackadoodle, and you put it out. You retweeted it. You reposted it, whatever it is on Truth. Retruth, he actually says, I think. So, am I watching things on television that are different? Yeah. You also, by the way, are not actually watching television in this case. In fact, just to throw in another paragraph or two before the break, Zane Sparling, Fedor Zarkin, and Zaim Sheikh of the Oregonian / Oregon Live noted yesterday, this introduction is too long, that this would have been Sunday or Saturday, that Trump's first threat to send federal troops to Portland came on September 5th, a day after the Fox News Channel aired a, quote, special report about a protest that had taken place 4 days before on Labor Day. The report about the Labor Day protest misleadingly mixed in clips from 2020 showing protesters burning the base of the Thompson Elk Foundation and a federal officer pepper spraying a person. And that somehow fooled him. Wait a minute, am I watching something old or something real? All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. So let's continue on with the Heather Cox Richardson retelling of some of the weekend events from the perspective of a Sunday morning, or I guess Sunday evening. I don't know. This afternoon, I guess it must be the evening. This afternoon, yesterday, Hegseth called 200 members of the Oregon National Guard into federal service for 60 days. Less than 6 hours later, Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield sued President Trump, Secretary of Defense Hegseth, Secretary of Homeland Security Noem, and their respective departments, saying the National Guard had been unlawfully deployed for law enforcement duties. Late this afternoon, Trump praised his... What? There's a war going on in Portland. I'm playing golf. I'm going to the Ryder Cup. Maybe this war isn't a war. Maybe med beds are real. Maybe they aren't. I don't know. I'm confused. What does Trump spend his time with? Well, what did he spend his time with when they asked him how you doing about Charlie Kirk? The answer is, late this afternoon, Trump praised his remodeling of the Oval Office. Why? Because it included copious gold fixtures, some of which match polyurethane applique available from the home improvement store at Home Depot, by the way. But no, on social media, Trump posted some of the highest quality 24-karat gold used in the Oval Office and cabinet room of the White House. Foreign leaders and everyone else, quote, freak out when they see the quality and beauty. Best Oval Office ever in terms of success and look, 3 exclamation points. President DJT. And yeah, good point, right? Actually, the color matches polyurethane applique available from Home Depot, but no, it's 24-karat gold, which I think for use in that application would be extremely unwise and a huge waste of money, no less. But of course, whatever. And I love it too. Foreign leaders freak out when they see it. Best Oval Office ever in terms of success. And look, it's just oh my God, the guy's head is up his own ass. It's nuts. And but we're having a war at the same time. Anyway, I thought she actually did a very good job summing up some of the real chaos of the weekend. But there's more. Let's see. In international news, I'll just very quickly note, as Ann Applebaum did on Blue Sky, as others noted over the weekend, we'll just offer our congratulations. This is our international news segment. If we're not bringing in troops or generals from all over the world in terms of foreign generals, we can at least offer them this. Ann Applebaum notes an incredibly important election in a tiny country. Tiny. This would not be hard to overtake with misinformation because they're tiny. Yeah, I love that Haribo gummy bears commercial. But anyway, maybe you haven't seen it. An incredibly important election in a tiny country just went the right way. Hooray! Moldova. Congratulations, Moldova, has resisted a huge Russian disinformation campaign and will not become a Russian puppet state, at least not through rigging the elections there anyway. Invasion, drone attack, well, I guess there's always that. But, they have long experience with Russian disinformation campaigns there. Not long information as an independent republic, but long experience with as being former Soviet republics, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, congratulations there. It's always nice to see when a democracy is able to withstand that kind of an assault, and it's worth celebrating. I think we'll celebrate it in the end by having Trump push their prime minister out of the way to get in front of a picture at some point. Wasn't it the Moldovan president or prime minister who got that treatment at one of the meetings? I'm not sure. I can't remember offhand, but that's a tried and true methodology for Donald Trump, so it's likely to happen. We can say that. All right, skipping further down the line here, not necessarily first in terms of importance, but there's a lot. So let's throw this one in there just by way of interesting stories. I note via Empty Wheel, Marcy Wheeler saw this thing and made some commentary on it. And the article is right here, the Phoenix New Times. The news is that the QAnon Shaman, you remember the QAnon Shaman, or do we say, is it not Shaman? It always looks like you should be saying Shaman, but I thought, I don't know, maybe both pronunciations are acceptable. Not what I wanted to get hung up on, but you remember the guy who painted his face. It was red, white, and blue, very patriotic, but had the big Water Buffalo Lodge hat on. No shirt, but big hat. And by the way, carrying a spear, which people still sort of fail to notice because he hung a flag on it. Well, it's one of those flagpoles with the sharp top. No, I mean, it is one, but that's not the regular pointy top finial, whatever that might be called. This is an actual spear. It's hard. People don't recognize spears these days. They're outmoded. QAnon Shaman says, ready? He's the rightful president. I know it's funny, but then there's that hesitation where you say, wait a second. The actual president is also off his rocker. Well, maybe. QAnon Shaman says he's the rightful president, and he is suing Trump for $40 trillion, which again, well, that's obviously a sign right off the bat that you're crazy. $40 trillion. But I think Trump has actually filed $1 trillion lawsuit in the recent past as well. In a rambling complaint, amazingly, the subheader says, Jacob Chansley, I guess that's his real name, claims DJs are spies. This is unclear whether he means radio DJs or just hip-hop DJs who put on house parties. That the NSA stole his work for a Batman movie and more. I just wanted to sort of point out, well, one, this is the new level of crazy. Two, he may be the actual president, or he may have heard these things from the actual president. Maybe we just misinterpreted. I heard from the actual president that these things are true. Oh, you must have told yourself that. No, the actual president told me that. Oh, you're the actual president? No. The orange president told me, the red, white, and blue president, that this was true, and I believe it. Oh, well, could be. The author here, TJ, Leroux, Euro. I don't know how you pronounce that. Heureux. Uru. I don't know. I'm sorry, TJ. You can call me up and let me know. Anyway, this is the important part, I think, would be the news. I think even TJ would agree. Arizona resident Jacob Chansley, better known to Americans as the QAnon Shaman, who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th in a striking horned warrior outfit, ensemble, is suing a host of entities, including the federal government and President Donald Trump, for $40 trillion. The guy's going to be worth a fortune. We should invest in him. In the process, the Phoenix resident is claiming that he is the rightful leader of the United States. In a rambling 26-page complaint, that's very short for a rambling complaint, that consists of a single paragraph, okay, you need an editor, and reads like a manifesto. Chansley alleges that his First, Fourth, and Second Amendment rights, we've gone out of order here, have been violated by a host of parties that are loosely related at best. Named as defendants are Trump, the Federal Reserve, we might be right about that one, the National Security Agency, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the Bank of International Settlements, wow, the State of Israel, well, maybe. They may have done this. I don't know. Elon Musk's X Corp, T-Mobile, they're a little surprised to be included, but thank you. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, and Warner Brothers Studios. That is exciting. Chansley says that the supposed cabal allegedly engaged in a conspiracy to systematically violate the American people's constitutional rights. Chansley, who is representing himself, filed a suit on Monday in Maricopa County Superior Court. Given that it contains federal claims, albeit wildly specious ones, it likely belongs in U.S. District Court, so maybe they'll remove it to District Court. Chansley did not respond to inquiries from the Phoenix New Times that they made via phone, the phone number and email that he listed on his court paperwork. Just so you know, the claims in Chansley's suit include a couple of bullet points here. First, that the central banking system and the Federal Reserve are unconstitutional. Trump actually, believes that too. That the U.S. government is guilty of treason for prioritizing the interests of foreign financiers at the expense of the American people. So far, still in agreement with Trump. That the NSA surveilled Chansley daily using the Patriot Act as he was writing a second Declaration of Independence. He might not believe that one. Trump. That all radio stations and most of their DJs, there's your answer, are part of the intelligence community. That a scene in the 2008 Christopher Nolan-directed Batman film The Dark Knight and many plot details in 2009's Avatar were cribbed from his writing and are proof that the NSA was spying on him, because that's what the NSA does, is spy on people and use their material for films. There's also that the NSA catfished him on Facebook by contacting him while pretending to be actress Michelle Rodriguez, whom Chansley identifies as, quote, my celebrity crush. So no wonder. That was just good spycraft, guys. Good job. That he was then offered the opportunity to work with NASA, with the NASA covertly. I think that probably is just a typo and he means the NSA. That he was offered the opportunity to work with the NSA covertly and help them deal with otherworldly matters. That his shamanic beliefs made him a perfect candidate to handle. Then that he was emailed by Donald Trump on January 8th, 2021 from an address of donaldtrump@nsa.gov. That could certainly have happened, but doesn't mean it was him. And lastly, that the government stole more than $100,000 in cryptocurrency from him, which should be more than made up for by the $40 trillion claim. These seemingly insignificant facts, he says, it's his words, are designed to seem insignificant on their face. That's good. Chansley wrote about the NSA's spying on his computer. But if a person were in the loop of what I had written on my computer a few months prior, those details would stand out to a sharp mind, or at least one that wore a sharply pointed horns on his hat. There you go. So I think we're up to date. Oh, no, there's more. There's some more detail. Are you interested? What about his complaint that he's the rightful president? Chansley references a number of exhibits that are not included in the suit, which is something you have to do. Instead, he included a handwritten URL for a Google Drive folder that he said contains more than 1,000 exhibits. to prove his accusations. In shorthand. Phoenix New Times encountered an error attempting to access it. While many of Chansley's claims are certifiably out there, he is president, so you're just going to have to live with it. There are some more defensible critiques of the U.S. government nestled among the conspiracy theories. They're going to both sides this claim. This is good. For one, he claimed the American government is violating citizens' Fifth Amendment rights by allowing an Israeli official to bail on a court hearing and return to Israel after he was charged with trying to pay for sex with a minor in Nevada. Chansley was also sharply critical of America's penchant for long, pointless wars. Okay. I think at this point, we'd probably jump out of the story here. I wanted to bring this to your attention, one, because it was happening. Two, there's a section down here that might help, explain some of my interest in it. Turning on Trump. If you haven't been following the saga of the QAnon Shaman, it might seem surprising that Chansley would rail against the Trump administration. However, despite Trump pardoning Chansley, that's right, along with other January 6th defendants, after which Chansley, who'd already served prison time, ecstatically tweeted he'd go buy some guns. Trump's backtracking on releasing files from the investigation into sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein changed Chansley's tune. That's right, Jeffrey Epstein. It's true. Even the QAnon Shaman is mad about that one. What are you going to do? I just found that interesting. And just, again, as an example, remember, you already know this, but Trump pardoned everybody in January 6th and said they were essentially saying very fine people, right? But this is the president's judgment. Not only have like a dozen other pardon recipients been arrested again since getting their pardons for unrelated crimes. Oh, and by the way, more than one of them, I think, are in court claiming that the pardons they received pardoned them from their subsequent crimes as well. And they weren't immediately thrown out of court. They're actually going to, I guess, litigate this and try to decide, well, maybe the wording of the pardon was so generalized that it's okay. And they're basically got license to kill forever. Great. Yes, let's please use the court's time this way. But in addition to all of that, some of the people that were deemed worthy of pardons, and he's a great patriot. Well, I thought that when he liked Trump. Now I'm not so sure. You can't really be president on this basis, guy. You really are, you're just insane, and plainly. Portland may be at war, but maybe what I'm seeing on television isn't real. Maybe. And maybe it wasn't a great idea to pardon all these people. But remember, these are the people he summoned to Washington. And when they arrived and he got a good look at them, they said, this is who I should set on foot in insurrection against the federal government and have them sack the Capitol. These are my guys. So, if you weren't ready to question the Trump's fitness as president, maybe you're just slow on the trigger. It's good to be judicious. Maybe you'll be ready now. All right. Too much time already on this one. Now off to other things that I put away. We got to get around to this one too. TikTok is in the news, and we haven't really discussed it yet, but that's also because no one is really sure what happened yet, because again, chaos around everything. But the underlying story, of course, legislation during the Biden administration and signed by Biden when everybody was whipped up into a frenzy about TikTok because TikTok had a Chinese ownership group behind it. And it was probably enough of legit seeds of concern were there that they could whip it up into something particularly online. Hey, are we worried about all of this personally identifiable information and surveillance worthy data and information being in the hands of people who would answer the call if the Chinese government demanded the information from them? And that was a semi-legitimate concern, I guess. And so it scared everybody, and they passed legislation, and Biden signed it, and it started the clock on, well, if the TikTok ownership group doesn't sell to an American ownership group instead by a certain period of time, then TikTok would be banned in America. And then that time came and went. Extensions were granted. Trump has granted, 15,000 of them, but he keeps extending the deadline. And now it has become apparent that he kept extending the deadline not because he wanted to save TikTok or make the kids happy or anything like that, although I'm sure that's what he told his teenage kids and grandkids. But it becomes clear that he was angling for a certain ownership group to be put together, a pro-Trump MAGA aligned ownership group that would make the bid to take over TikTok. And once that was lined up, then it was okay to force the transfer. And but even so, even there, it's subject to the agreement apparently of the Chinese government as well, and nobody is really sure whether we have that. Trump says we got it, but there's apparently some question about whether or not the Chinese government agrees that that's the case. So the Ars Technica report on this is it starts on one phase of the issue, which is the worrying one. Remember that all this started was over concerns that a hostile government would have access to and control over all of this critical data that could be used to create all sorts of problems or track things or create chaos, worry, fear across America and around the world as people use TikTok, that the government would have access to this information. And the worry was supposed to be that it was the Chinese government. Now, of course, the worry will be instead that it's going to the United States government in the hands of the crazy guy who's not sure whether what he's watching on TV is real or AI or actually happening or not happening, or who's coming to Quantico to see his Secretary of Defense, whatever. Trump now said, but this is his plan for what to do with this thing. Trump says TikTok should be tweaked to become, quote, 100% MAGA. Now, normally you would say, hey, that's crazy plan by itself. You're crazy for suggesting that it could happen, should happen, and is legal if it did happen. But he has just seen the same thing, of course, happen to X, and so why not? Uncertainty reigns, says the subheader, as Trump claims China approved TikTok deal. But there it is. The hint is given, at least. He claims it's purported that China has approved the TikTok deal. Ashley Ballinger is the reporter. This was a September 26th piece, fresh off Jimmy Kimmel returning to TV. Remember that? To warn that Donald Trump's attacks on free speech would not end with censoring comedians critical of his administration. Trump signed an executive order, I would have enclosed that in quotes, executive order, to, quote, save TikTok, while supposedly joking. He said it. He cracked a smile, but that's because it made him excited to think about this sort of control. Oh, therefore he's joking because we're in trouble. People are mad about this. Okay, he's joking then. While supposedly joking that he'd like to censor influencers by tweaking the algorithm so that content is 100% MAGA. That's the quote. Everyone is going to be treated fairly, the president added, seemingly covering his tracks, good point, as critics warn that TikTok under U.S. ownership could soon carry a right-wing bias, perhaps going the way of, Twitter after Elon Musk took over and rebranded it as X. It would otherwise be a crazy thing to say, but everybody actually has seen this happen already, so maybe not. On Sunday, Trump told Fox News that media mogul Rupert Murdoch and his son Lachlan, the CEO of Fox Corporation, would likely be a part of the investor group taking over TikTok's U.S. operations. That deal, which Trump claimed Thursday was tentatively approved by Chinese President Xi Jinping, was set up to ensure that TikTok complies with the law banning majority ownership of the app by a foreign adversary in order to protect Americans from spying or foreign influence on the algorithm. Except, same thing, but here. But it's our spying. Trump's executive order confirmed that Oracle would be charged with securing American TikTok's data. It also laid out how the new U.S. venture would be managed by a new board of directors on which ByteDance, TikTok's regular Chinese owner, which has remained silent on the sale, and did not respond to Ars' request for comment. Ars, always a funny name to read out loud. TikTok, or rather ByteDance, would retain 1 seat on the board, according to this deal. The other 6 seats would go to U.S. investors to ensure the app was U.S. controlled, Trump said, with Oracle's CEO Larry Ellison likely filling one. Right, and remember, Oracle also gets the job of securing American TikTokers' data. It'll be secured by a guy who is apparently outright MAGA. I'm securing the data so the government can't get control of it. Unless, of course, I give him control of it because I like the president or feel obligated to him. Well, that's one of the 6 seats going to that guy. The second of the 6 seats going, oddly, to his son, oddly enough. David Ellison, who happens to be, thanks to the fact that his dad, at least briefly last week, was the richest man in the world, surpassing somehow Elon Musk's bazillion dollars. But it sounds like they may have flip-flopped once again. So all this stuff is on paper anyway. But golly, with that kind of money in hand, he's able to just say, hey, son, do you want to be one of the world's most powerful CEOs? Yes, here's enough money to do it. David Ellison, now CEO of Paramount Skydance, could possibly fill another, The Guardian reported. So it would be great if the Murdochs controlled 1 or 2 of the seats out of the 6, and also 2 Ellisons controlled 2. You know, it will look like America, like its skin is drawn too taut across its face. Whether Xi will actually approve the deal has yet to be seen, as Chinese media has not confirmed Trump's claim that he had a, quote, good talk, unquote, with Xi, in which the Chinese president gave him the, quote, go ahead, unquote, to move forward with the sale to U.S. owners. Now, of course, that's just something Trump is going to just say is true. We got the okay. Oh. Previously, experts had suggested that China had little incentive to follow through with the deal, while as recently as July, ByteDance denied reports that it had agreed to sell TikTok to the U.S., the South China Morning Post reported. Yesterday, Reuters noted that Vice President J.D. Vance confirmed that the, quote, new U.S. company will be valued at around $14 billion, unquote, a price tag, again, quote, far below some analyst estimates, unquote, which might frustrate ByteDance. It might. Questions also remain over what potential concessions Trump may have made to get Xi's sign-off, if in fact he did get it. It's also unclear if Trump's deal meets the legal requirements of the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act, with Reuters reporting that numerous details still needed to be fleshed out. That's the way of all such deals, and all, particularly trade deals, with the Trump administration. Nobody knows whether they're signed. Nobody knows whether the other country agreed. The other country, if they do agree, doesn't know, as it turns out, what they agreed to. Trump and paperwork, man. I'm telling you. Last Friday, James Sullivan of J.P. Morgan suggested on CNBC that, quote, Trump's proposed TikTok deal lacked clarity on who is in control of the algorithm, leaving the national security concerns wide open, CNBC reported. So, yeah, you might wonder whether that complies with the act that was supposed to secure that stuff. Is it secure? No one knows. Who controls it? I don't know. Is there an algorithm? Who runs it? Nobody knows. Is that in compliance with the act? It's funny. They stand there and say, well, nobody knows for sure. No, it is not in compliance with the act. There should be an ironclad answer to that. That there isn't is more sign that the president is an unstable lunatic and doesn't belong in the job. It's just, how much more evidence could you possibly get? This is just added to the pile. Other critics, including the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Civil Liberties Director David Green, warned in a statement to ARS, A-R-S, there's no E on the end, it's different, that the U.S. now risks, quote, turning over TikTok to, quote, the allies of a president who seems to have no respect for the First Amendment. And they do not mean Xi Jinping, they mean the United States president. Jennifer Huddleston, a senior fellow in technology policy at the Cato Institute, that left-wing group, agreed. The agreement or the arrangement creates uncertainty about what influence or oversight the U.S. government might require over this separate algorithm. Oh my goodness, we're late already. I knew I would be when I was reading this one. But the arrangement creates uncertainty about what influence or oversight the U.S. government might require if the separate algorithm, over this separate algorithm, that could raise potential First Amendment concerns regarding government influence over a private actor, Huddleston said. All right, there's more. We'll continue with it after this and a 2-minute break. And we'll clear up the pipes and get things working once again. See? Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back everyone to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. That little thing, I figured this was going to happen any second. As I was trying to set up some video for later on, and almost got it done during the break, but then, I don't know, a little bit of a hiccup there. I should probably check and make sure everything else is working at this point, and all the sound is coming through. All right, it looks like it's okay. I don't know what that little audio hiccup really was, but we'll see if we can figure it out. I do want to play you something, and it's not in any of the normal independent freestanding app players that I usually use, but embedded in a Mediaite story. But we'll see. First, we have to actually get through this story and get on to the next one and see what we can fit in today's show. So we left off in the Ars Technica retelling of the latest on the TikTok story right before entering the, I think maybe the last section here titled, Will TikTok Become Right Wing? It's a question. The answer given here is that The Guardian recently conducted a deep dive, linked herein, you should take a look at it, into how the Murdochs and Ellison's involvement could, quote, gift Trump's billionaire allies a degree of control over U.S. media that would be vast and unprecedented, unquote, by allowing, another quote, the owners of the U.S.'s most powerful cable TV channels to steer the nation's most influential social network. That was once Twitter, of course. And while that star has faded, that may not necessarily have been due entirely to Elon Musk's takeover. I think probably Twitter's time was coming and going. TikTok was ascendant at the time anyway, but it certainly hastened the rot inside Twitter. But now, I mean, it may be that TikTok itself will eventually be supplanted with something else. It's getting to be about that time. These things just sort of have natural cycles to it. But yeah, if both Twitter and TikTok are under the control of Trump-aligned billionaires who also control a significant portion of the information that even us olds get by controlling television networks, you know, That poses a serious problem. Trump, of course, denied that there could be a conflict. It's just not a possible thing in his mind. But then again, he doesn't know whether he's watching television or not. He also insisted that the deal satisfies the requirements of the law requiring TikTok to divest ownership and keep Americans' data away from China. In a fact sheet, he boasted that he, quote, found a solution for the 170 million Americans who use TikTok, ensuring users will be able to safely enjoy the same global TikTok experience and view content from around the world with the confidence that their data is secure in the United States. That obviously something that was written for him and is conclusory in a way that's just unsupported with the facts on the ground. But that's what he's got to do. He's got to insist he's in compliance with the law. And he is, if you read the law as requiring nothing more than taking control away from the Chinese. If it's a law about protecting the confidentiality of users' data, no, that's not only not ensured, it's not Trump's point in engineering the takeover this way. That's not what he's after. And that's not in compliance with the law. But who cares about compliance with the law anyway? Ha. Oh well. The president further claimed that preserving TikTok's business will generate $178 billion in economic activity in the U.S. over the next 4 years and sustain thousands of U.S. jobs and businesses. But that depends on U.S. TikTokers sticking around while U.S. owners license the algorithm from ByteDance and retrain it on U.S. data rather than purchasing the algorithm outright. In July, sources told The Information, whatever that is, a publication, theinformation.com, in case you're wondering, that the U.S. controlling the app and the algorithm could result in technical issues, possibly driving away users to alternative apps if the algorithm is viewed as less effective at recommending desirable content. Another wrinkle in Trump's deal that could turn off some TikTokers is the amount of involvement the government has in the app. 4 insiders familiar with the deal's terms told the New York Times, linked herein, that, quote, investors have been in discussions to pay a multi-billion-dollar transaction fee to the U.S. government, while other sources previously told the Wall Street Journal that at least one board member of TikTok US would likely be designated by the government. So another one of those not socialism takeovers of a significant portion of the equity and control in a private corporation by whatever the U.S. government is meant to be here. Intel, golden shares in U.S. Steel, now TikTok, and then basically just about anything else. This brings us back to another thing we mused about some time ago, that this is that moment, maybe it won't happen, but maybe, certainly possible, the conditions are right, for U.S. oligarchs to realize, hey, I was backing the Trump agenda and backing Trump himself because he's a rich guy and he loves to talk about how other rich guys are very deserving, and I'm going to bring more rich guys into control, and I like those people. They say good things about me. We're going to do wonderful things. But it ends up, it turns out that one, he wants to take quasi-governmental control over these private companies, and two, he's also engineering things. One thing that would go a long way toward guaranteeing your independence is if you invested in cryptocurrency, which I think is the wave of the future. Now, I happen to own a cryptocurrency. Might be a good idea to buy my cryptocurrency. That would be, I think, an excellent indication that you're interested in cooperation. And that way, the seat that the government occupies on your board remains under your control, let's say, perhaps, but maybe not. So it's a great way for him to extort money for himself. It's a great way to set up the government that you apparently have unitary control over, to have, voting power in these. It's an insane situation, particularly. And it's also hypocritical for, a president and a political party that was railing about socialism the whole time to use this as its solution. But just another example, throw it on the pile of, this is the good kind of socialism, I guess, the orange face painted kind. The last paragraph here, the Cato Institute's Huddleston warned that, quote, the government's investment in the overall business decisions and comments indicating that it could seek a potential cut of the deal, we glossed over that part, could also set a concerning precedent, setting up a potential future where the government uses the so-called TikTok ban or sale law to take a cut and commandeer other popular apps, or indeed other popular anything, or even unpopular anything. Doesn't have to be apps. So what we glossed over here is that this idea that somehow built into the deal, according to Trump, whether it's actually there in the deal or not, or the legislation. Well, one of the things that we need, if we're going to give control of this very powerful and influential app to these few very brilliant and very rich, because they're brilliant, investors, well, this is going to make a lot of money for these families. The Ellisons, the Murdochs, they're going to make money like you've never seen before. And one of the things that I think should be important, this is happening because the government is intervening and allowing this to happen. So there should be a finder's fee of sorts. In business, we have that all the time. All the time. In New York real estate, a finder's fee, a very standard part of things, 10% of the value of the transaction. You know, is that the fee? No, it almost never is. But can you claim that? Do I know? I mean, maybe, I don't know. You know what? I say that it never is. It can't possibly be 10%, probably 1% though. But maybe 10%. What do I know about anything, right? And that's the problem. Nobody knows anything about anything. The president has claimed that he's wearing a suit and tie. We have to believe him. 10% of the value of this should go to the government. 1, we don't know if it should be 10%. 2, no, they shouldn't be taking any kind of a fee. 3, is it going to, what does the government even mean? Is it going to the government? Is it going to Trump? Is it going into accounts that he feels like he has personal control of because of the unitary executive theory? I don't know. You don't know. It's never been done before. It's not the way America is supposed to work, but here we are. Well, we're not really sure exactly what's happening. We have to sit here and say, well, you know, the United States government forced this to happen, and the people to whose benefit it is happening are already extraordinarily wealthy and are already joined at the hip with Trump and already understand that they can be forced by his political power to do these things. So maybe it's best for them to just give in. If I'm going to make $100 billion off of this thing and he wants 10 billion of it, maybe that's okay. What do I care? I already have billions and billions of dollars anyway. It means nothing to me. All this other money will be turned over to me, and I'll only be asked to do a favor sometime in the future. He may never call on me for that favor, but, you know, if he does, I should be ready to serve. And in the meantime, here's $10 billion. And it's not going into the treasury. It's going to his pocket. Whoops. You know, I don't know anything about that. So keep an eye out. I just have to warn you. That's a possibility. By the way, Trump has also found a brand new way of skimming dollars off of some combination of private activity and the federal government. I happened to see this. I think I actually saw this. It's an AP story that was running actually on the front page of the Daily Kos, not the Daily Kos, but Daily Kos. I know we like to use it without the, but it's an AP story, which is the AP. And I enjoyed this telling of it. Trump's, well, this is the headline that's on it in the AP. The headline at Daily Kos was slightly different, but Trump's Rose Garden Club is a lavish new hangout for political allies and business elites. We've mentioned already the fact that he paved over the Rose Garden, and I think we made some mention of the fact that he has turned it into essentially a replica of the patio at Perva-Lago, which is not something to be imitated generally, and certainly not at the White House. And this is before he gets to, by the way, I think item 1 of the Weekend Chaos was publishing renderings, architectural renderings, I guess you could call them, but they really, I don't know if a real architect did any of these things. Renderings of the planned ballroom for the White House. And according to the renderings, by the way, the ball house is like twice the square footage of the main executive mansion. I think excluding the wings, West Wing and East Wing. But the main executive mansion fits inside, 2 of them would fit inside this proposed 90,000 square foot ballroom. It's a monstrosity. I think it violates the height restrictions for DC as well. It's, it's in the federal style, but it vastly outsizes the White House. It's going to look really stupid. I mean, just dumb looking. Plus, it's overly ornate and gross, and we don't need a ballroom. I love that Trump keeps saying for 150 years they've been trying to have a ballroom. About 150 years ago was probably the last time that anybody said a ballroom would be a relevant addition to anything. But there you have it. In the meantime, the addition has been the Patio Club, and it is, in fact, a club. We heard a story not that long ago about there was this weird situation. Everybody was trying to figure out what does it mean that there was music being piped outside the White House, and no one could figure out what was going on. Now we know that's the soundtrack. That's the music bed that they've chosen to play when the club is in session. It really is exactly that. Trump's Rose Garden Club is a lavish new hangout for political allies and business elites. Some pictures here. Chris Magarian, and Darlene Superville, unless she's Superville, like Superman lives in Superville, are the reporters on this September 24th piece. And this is a nod to the recurring character on Saturday Night Live, whose name escapes me, and even the actor's name escapes me because I don't know anything. Is it Bill Hader? Is that right? Washington's hottest club has everything, right? Cabinet secretaries, a new stone patio, food from the White House kitchen, and even a playlist curated by President Donald Trump. That's the mysterious music that's playing outside. But by the way, just note that. I'm going to start a club, and I'll charge people admission, and all my friends, I'm going to have my own private disco and fancy friends over. And so how is this a club? Why would people come? Well, they can eat dinner here. Where? From what? Who's? I'll make the White House kitchen provide the food. But the taxpayer. Yeah, I don't care. Shut up. Go away. What do you want to go to jail? That's where we are. But good luck getting a spot on the guest list, you loser. So far, it doesn't say you loser, but that's the implication. So far, only some of the president's political allies, business executives, and administration officials have been invited. In Trump's remake of the White House, the Rose Garden is now the Rose Garden Club, with the iconic lawn outside the Oval Office transformed into a taxpayer-supported imitation of the patio at Mar-a-Lago, the president's private Florida resort. And why not, right? Trump debuted the name during his first formal dinner there this month and has included it on his official public schedule, too. But then again, he says it's the Gulf of America, so you never know. He hosted another event Wednesday evening, last week, I guess, with members of his cabinet and senior staff, according to an official who wasn't authorized to discuss the matter publicly. Some photos of the place embedded in this piece here. The event went off despite rain earlier in the evening. It was closed to the press, but an aide posted video of the Marine Corps silent drill platoon performing on the South Lawn. So the food is provided by the White House kitchen, entertainment provided by the United States military. Presidents have always used invitations to the White House as a prestigious reward for friends and supporters, but Trump's rebranding of an iconic area of the People's House is unprecedented. It's a fresh example of how the billionaire Republican is replicating the gilded and cloistered bubble of his private life inside the confines of the most famous government housing, it is government housing, in the country. The next section, Trump has long understood the allure of exclusive spaces. In his first term, Trump had an eponymous hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue, a few blocks away. Everything's eponymous, of course. A few blocks away from the White House, and would go there often for dinner. But the Trump family sold the property during President Joe Biden's administration, leaving him without a uniquely Trump establishment in the city in his second term. Although the executive branch is a club that his son started across town, and he could be going there all the time, but his son did it, and he doesn't like his son. So, it doesn't work. Now, he doesn't need to go anywhere to enter his comfort zone, and in fact has been spending less time at his home on the golf course in central New Jersey than he did in the first year of his first term. And that's because all the medical equipment is at Pervalago 2 and the D.C. golf course, which isn't in D.C. To make the Rose Garden his own, Trump paved over the grass and set out tables and chairs complete with yellow and white striped umbrellas. Why is that important? Because they resemble the ones at Pervalago in Palm Beach. He also installed a speaker system to play his favorite tunes, as he does in Florida. Very White House-ish. By the way, tan suit, everybody. The project cost about $2 million and was paid for by private donations. Yes, private donations. But to where? Private donations to the Trust for the National Mall, a nonprofit, which means they were tax deductible, that works with the National Park Service. So everybody can go and enjoy this park, right? No, get the F out of here. You can't. The events on the new White House patio so far have been official in nature and are part of the long tradition of presidential entertaining at the Executive Mansion, with military social aides on hand to escort guests and the kitchen staff tasked to whip up the sustenance. All on your dollar, everybody. Trump, who rose to fame as a New York real estate executive, also ran casinos and hotels and still loves playing host. He frequently flatters his guests as brilliant and beautiful and relishes the ability to gather the country's most powerful people. So who pays? All presidents invite family members and friends, lawmakers and political allies, donors and business leaders and others to the White House for reasons that range from bill signings to policy announcements to picnics and lavish state dinners. Trump is expected to entertain at the White House marble patio in the shadow of the Washington Monument as often as he can, the White House said. Taxpayers pick up the tab for... get this pop-up out of the way, please. No? Not going to agree? Okay. Well, there we go. Taxpayers pick up the tab for some of the social events hosted by a president, like the gathering for Republican lawmakers. Congress gives the White House money to pay for events like these, since the Executive Mansion is also the president's home. Events of a more personal nature, like a birthday party or the funeral service Trump held at the White House in 2020 for his younger brother Robert, would have to be paid for by the president, since it's not considered government or the people's business, but also F that. Tech titans lose out to GOP lawmakers for the club opening. The official debut of the Rose Garden Club was supposed to be with tech titans such as Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, Google's Sundar Pichai, am I pronouncing that right, and Microsoft's Satya Nadella, but rain forced Trump to move the September 4th event indoors to the ornate state dining room. There's a lot of ornate spaces for entertaining, but he's building a bigger one. The honor of being first instead went to Republican lawmakers who gathered around 24 tables under a clear night sky on September 5th. So there you go. Holding a microphone, Trump welcomed his guests by saying, "You are the first ones in this great place." He described it as a club, yes, using those words, for people that can bring peace and success to our country. Not losers, I guess. Table settings featured white tablecloths, yellow roses, plus a place card that said the Rose Garden Club at the White House. So he's trying hard to make it happen. Dinner started with a Rose Garden salad that included tomatoes and the very expensive and exclusive iceberg lettuce, followed by steak or chicken or pasta primavera for vegetarians. That's woke, but okay. Chocolate cake, the most beautiful chocolate cake you ever saw, was dessert. Trump sat at a corner table with White House Speaker Mike Johnson, Representative Ronnie Jackson for the drinks, I guess. They were drinking his blood to get drunk. And Senator Dave McCormick of Pennsylvania. Other lawmakers circulated by Trump's table for photos with the president. Some were posted online. It was an honor to be there, wrote Representative John McGuire of Virginia, who nobody has ever heard of. All right, so that was it. You had to come by his table. President Trump, I hope that their first child is a masculine child. You honor me by inviting me to the the wedding of your daughter and the daughter of your wedding. Both. They said I could say either one, Don Corleone. Thank you very much. Anyway, now you know what he's up to there. I mentioned that I had some video to play for you. I thought this would be a good way of updating the news on the James Comey indictment. This was a surprise, I thought, probably, for the viewers. I got to turn this down and roll this because I got to get through a commercial that is, I guess, mandatory on this thing, and I can't skip. It's for laundry detergent if you're in need. I'm sure these guys are brilliant, and they do a great job cleaning the clothes. This is what I was actually after. A clip from, what's-her-face's, Maria Bartiromo's show on Fox Business Channel. This was interesting. Alex Griffin covering this for Mediaite.com. Fox legal analyst tells Maria Bartiromo, I don't think there's a case against Comey. That came out on September 26th, the end of last week. I was curious, I don't think we have any measurement. They're just burying it and not talking about it anymore. What impact that may have had in Trump world or Fox News world. And it's clear that Maria Bartiromo, A, wasn't expecting this, B, wasn't really sure what to say about it when it was said. She does appear to grasp it, but she's trying to save the segment. But very interesting. And this, I think, is very revealing. I think the guys got it right. It's Andrew McCarthy, Fox News legal analyst Andrew McCarthy, told Maria Bartiromo on Friday that he does not think there is a solid case against former FBI Director James Comey in the recent indictment against him. How long is this clip? Are they going to tell me? I don't know. It's not that long. I think we can actually play it, or at least the part of it that I think you'll find interesting. If I can crank up the sound here. Let's roll.
Now is former federal prosecutor and Fox News contributor Andrew McCarthy. Andy, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Hi, Maria.
First, give us your reaction to the indictment.
Well, I don't think there's a case.
There you go.
The things that Kash Patel that you just played that he was talking about that you and I have spoken about for years, Maria, the Russiagate stuff, I'm as big a critic of that probably as there is. I wrote a book about it. I think it was a disgrace, and history will remember it that way. This indictment is not about that, and it seems to be premised on something that's not true, which is that McCabe said that Comey authorized him to leak to the Wall Street Journal.
Now, do you remember this? We discussed this last week, that when you finally actually had the counts spelled out, was that Comey was accused of lying to Congress in his testimony before one of the hearings, in which he said, I didn't authorize Andrew McCabe to leak this information. And but they said, oh, no, you did, and you're lying. Okay, so that's what this case is actually about. So this is what we're hearing about now.
If you look closely at what McCabe said was that he directed a leak to the Wall Street Journal and told Comey about it after the fact. So it's true that Comey never authorized it in the sense of okaying it before it happened. So I don't see how they can make that case.
And that's the bulk. That's all there is to the indictment, that that Comey lied about authorizing McCabe to make this leak, and in so doing, A, lied to Congress, and B, obstructed Congress's investigation. But here it's pointed out by Andrew McCarthy that's actually not the case. What he's been indicted with has no evidence. No evidence has been developed whatsoever that would bolster this case. It's just the hope that people will conflate it with earlier claims that just didn't turn out to be true.
What about the leaking in general? I mean, what about leaking a story that they may have known was a lie to the media? Because if you're the director of the FBI, you need the evidence to say, for years, congressmen and lawmakers were trying to understand, Devin Nunes, John Radcliffe, trying to understand what's the origins of this investigation.
Now, here's Maria Bartiromo trying to save the whole thing. Well, what about, isn't it illegal to leak information? Yeah, but, Comey didn't leak the information, and he didn't tell McCabe to leak the information. I know, we all feel bad about leaks, but that's not what the charging documents say, Maria.
So what was the origins of Russia collusion with Trump? And so they never really had any evidence of it, but they leaked it to the press?
Yeah, but that's not what this case is about. I totally agree with you if you were talking about the information that was provided to the FISA court that claimed that Trump was in collusion with the Kremlin. But that's not what this case is about. What this case is about is Comey is accused of lying because what Ted Cruz said, and what Cruz said, and I think this was just a garble on his part, was that Comey authorized McCabe to orchestrate the leak. And what the Inspector General found, and this isn't even just what the Inspector General found, this is McCabe's own version of events. Right. McCabe said that he directed the leak and he told Comey about it afterwards. Now, they have a dispute about what exactly McCabe told Comey afterwards and whether Comey was approving or disapproving of it. But the charge is that Comey authorized the leak, and he didn't authorize the leak.
I see. Well, the judge assigned to this case is a 2021 Biden appointee.
I see. So, so actually this didn't happen and it's not true. But the judge is an appointee of Biden, so there you go.
Judge Michael Nachmanoff, what are your thoughts on that and what the grand jury will be looking at?
Well, I think it's a shame, and I should preface this, Maria, just so cards are on the table. I know Comey for 40 years. I like him. I was in the office with him. I've been a pretty severe critic of his throughout the Russiagate stuff, but on legal stuff, I try to be clinical and call it as I see it.
Yeah.
So I think this judge should throw the case out. But I'm afraid that he won't throw the case out because everyone will say he's a Biden judge and the fix is in. So it's probably, I mean, even though I wouldn't want to go through it myself, it's probably better if there's a trial and the jury acquits him. But this case should be thrown out.
Well, we'll just stop it there because, of course, they may run past our outro music, and it's time to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Long past time, as a matter of fact, I would say. All right. Sorry about that, Justice, but I wanted to get that one on the record. So how about that? Poor Maria Bartiromo had to find out that the whole thing is garbage and should never have gone forward. And the fact that it should be thrown out won't matter because the judge will feel pressured to allow it to go to trial. And then, of course, they'll just say that he rigged the trial as well. So there's never going to be any satisfying any of them. It's just interesting to watch her, I don't know, I guess the coloring change as she begins to realize, this is actually complete nonsense, and we never should have gone forward with it. Okay, well, we'll follow up and see how things go and how Lindsay Halligan does at holding on in her new job. Apparently, the transcript of the proceedings in the courtroom proved that, well, to no one's surprise, she had no idea whatsoever what she was doing.
Netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Hey, well, guess what? As happenstance would have it, Justice Putnam will be taking that story up, as a matter of fact, leading off with Trump's newly installed, inexperienced U.S. attorney, whose claim to fame is not only competing in Trump beauty pageants, but also insisting that there are too many exhibits about slavery at the U.S. African American Museum. She's the one making the case. We'll see you tomorrow.